Good morning, everyone who listens to Air America Radio. I hope everyone is well and healthy. Don't forget to wear masks and constantly wash and disinfect your hands. My name is Andrea Vera, and I'm very excited to be with you once again in this session called Interesting Facts About History. Today we have two special guests, Alejandra Cardona and Santiago Rey. They are two translation students at the University of Quindío who are going to share with us valuable information about an author who contributed a lot to the translation field. I personally love this topic since I used to study translation a long time ago when I was at the university, and I consider that it is an amazing field for those who love languages like me. So his name is Louis Julien Leboucher, most known as Georges Mounin. He was a French linguist born June 20, 1910 and died January 10, 1993. He was a professor of linguistics and semiology at the University of Aix-Marseille. Now we're going to listen to Santiago and Alejandra who are going to tell us more about this important author. Welcome.
Good morning, Andrea. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the space, and I am glad to be here to share a little bit about this important author.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Andrea, for giving us this space to share a little more about an important author who probably not many people know. Mounin was concerned a lot about translation problems, and that's why he wrote a lot of books related to it. But we are going to focus on the book Theoretical Problems of Translation in 1963, which Mounin shows the translation problems that linguistics has brought up today, diversity of languages and communication difficulties. He condemns the excessive use of the notion of communication by proposing degrees that will help the translator to classify his facts according to a hierarchical system. Also, Mooney attached a great importance to semantic questions regarding definition problems, reference, and distinctive features. It is a peculiarly interesting aspect of research, especially nowadays. Mourning lies particular emphasis on translation capacities. It is a never accomplished process since translation, just like languages, constitute a process of the words and people knowledge that can never reach completion. That's the reason Mourning recommends that linguistics, both theoretical and descriptive, include translation into its research field. It is very interesting and important to us knowing this type of book. Also, in my opinion, we as a future translator should know those problems that linguistics has brought up today. We can talk about some of the most common challenges of translation include, for example, translating language structure, translating idioms and expressions, translating compound words, and translator sarcasms. Based on the Monet's advice, which was linguistics, both theoretical and descriptive, include translation into its research field. I totally agree considering that the usefulness of linguistics will lie in the fact that it's clear that linguistic questions concern all historians, philologists, translators who have to handle text. Even more evident it is importance for the general culture. In the lives of individuals and society, there is no factor as important as languages and how to manage it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Alejandro. Translators have a big challenge day by day improving those skills that will contribute to the translation field. Also, if they constantly do research to try to solve translation difficulties. I also think that we have this multiculturalism that makes translation work even harder, since culture is fundamental when translating, and as you mentioned, idioms and expressions are proper from a culture, and they have to be taken into account and studied. And that is why I think linguistics should be included into the translation studies, since it is in charge of analyzing all these kind of aspects, such as meaning into a specific context. So, for example, pragmatics and semantics play an important role.
Of course, Andrea, for Monin, translation can be even considered as impossible if he takes into account all the linguistic problems he proposed. Throughout his work, he presents the linguistic obstacles to translation activity, grouping them into three categories. First, the problem of meaning, second, world views, and the last one, the multiplicity of civilizations.
Wow, that sounds pretty interesting. And how's that?
Okay, for Mounin, the notion of meaning plays a key role in translation activity, where both the results and the process are always uncertain, and this for various reasons. There are some theories that explain it. One, according to the linguist Bloomfield, says that the meaning is closely related to the situation in which the speaker is. This makes the meaning of a statement remain inaccessible, which would imply the impossibility of translation. Another proposal by Helmsley says that language contains two substances: the substance of the content that itself contains a form of content that can vary in each language. In this case, it is impossible to know the meaning in relation to the corresponding situation, as proposed by Bloomfield. This linguistic theory put into question the notion of meaning and the possibility of apprehending it accurately. Also, they put into question the possibility of translating. A good number of investigations have tried to detect the minimum units of meaning that would constitute the meaning of a term. These investigations intend to cover the total structure of the lexicon and to elaborate semantic classification of the lexicon.
Wow, that sounds pretty nice. But also, as you previously mentioned, there is another problem which I consider is quite important here, and that is related to the difficulties already described about worldviews and the problem of meaning. So, multiplicity of civilizations, it means the different social cultures or civilizations that carry their own notions and pose quite complex problems to the translation, for the translation, of course. And as I have read for Mounin, the major problem is that he tried to enclose translation within the limits of descriptive linguistics and structural linguistics. And it is not just about that. He also considers that we can use the disciplines such as ethnography, for example, that will allow us to penetrate another worldviews and another civilizations. And I agree with him. Translation is not only linguistic, so the translator must also transmit in a certain way the knowledge system of the community from which he translates. It is in order to become a good translator. So I think it's quite true. And linguistics is a way of accessing meaning, yes, but it's also necessary to take into account the ethnographic way as much more appropriate way to access a meaning of a culture. And this is also said by Eugene Mira, because for her, ethnography leads the translator to interpret the source culture. What do you think?
Yes, Andrea. I think that the points of view and the problems of relation that you just mentioned are completely interesting for me. I agree with you both, Alejandro and Andrea. I think that the translation is a very and never accomplished process, and we're always learning new things about this field that allows us to do our best in this profession. I also agree with the point Muni highlighted that you mentioned, and is that linguistics need to be included in the translation research field. Also, I consider that there are two fields that are related, so both should be studied. Another way presented by Muni to solve translation problems is philology. This path, although incomplete, helps to understand the linguistic system of a current language by comparing it with the system of this language in the past. After reading one of his most important books, History of Linguistics, I could see the importance. The appearance of Munin's book will make us think that it is an orderly and documented work on the history of linguistics from ancient to early or century. However, the topic proposed by Mounin to develop his examination from a current functional and structural point of view, and the author seems to have changed the subject to a consideration of the past of linguistics, which is undoubtedly a great possibility of debate, but at the same time makes one wonder if the word will actually be most useful for the student of the language, not as a textbook, but as a manual. It seems to me that the main interest of the book lies precisely in the interest of seeing history from a conscious point of view, a true position in which Munich bases the reorganization that each era must make of its legacy lasts. Meaning own interests now seem to be the follow up to a general language that comes down to perception. In the past 2 hours of the double articulation of language, and which ignores a lot of linguistic thoughts. From today's linguistic data from ancient times, a good part should consist of observations made by medieval and Renaissance Hindus and Europeans on problems differentiated by dialects, semantics, etc.
Wow, that's so interesting. In my view, as I could hear, Mounin was constantly doing research in order to provide all the enriching information needed in order to improve translation quality and also to try to solve translation issues, the issues that he noticed. Yes, it is important to study history through philology, for example, also cultures through ethnography, but linguistic is as well important and related with the mentioned areas of knowledge. So maybe for some people, translation do not need to focus on all of it, but just on linguistics. Yet, I agree with Monin that translation is not only linguistic.
Yes, Andrea. I think that many people do not focus only on the aspect of linguistics, but more on an historical aspect to have information about the linguistic basis that the author exposes, and also putting a little aside the practice of it to focus more on the on theory, since the content of the book allows us to see it both ways, which makes it very interesting and valuable to the student community.
Sure, Andrea. However, in my opinion, linguistics play an important role in translation since linguistics work on specific languages. But their primary goal is to understand the nature of a language in a general way. Therefore, with linguistics, we improve our communication skills from working out why a certain syntax is used and to understand the meaning behind how words are said. Besides, a good translation elicits the same emotional response in the readers as the source text does in its readers, and we can achieve it with linguistics. That's why I think people should focus on the linguistics part.
Okay, it is true. I totally agree with you too. And I think that as a conclusion, we may say that even if for many translation was considered somehow as impossible, finally it is not. If we analyze and try to solve problems through different areas of knowledge as philology and ethnography. So translation is a challenging field with a long way to explore and study. Until now, well, linguistics have shown that there are divergences between languages, but also convergences, which have helped to solve the question, is it translation possible? Well, finally, for Munin, the answer is yes. Since there are common features that allow the translation from one language to another so that in the field of universals, translation will be possible. Well, thank you, Alejandro and Santiago, for coming and share with us all this valuable information. It is really nice to meet you and to have this space for learning together. And to all the people who listen to us, thanks for tuning into this program called Interesting Facts About History. I hope you like it. And remember, I wait for you every Friday at 10 a.m. with an interesting broadcast. Bye bye.
Okay, Andrea, thank you very much for the space. Bye.
Thank you so much, and Andrea. Until next time. Bye bye.